Sorry about that. My camera filled up and I had to cut me off in the last video. But anyway, what I was saying was, yeah, like, so for the first time since 1947, Canada's population has been shrinking two quarters in a row. We're like down by like probably over 100,000 people in the last past year. So that's good. You know, it's not good enough. We need to get rid of a minimum of like 400,000 to a million people a year to reverse in the 10 years. But we really need to get rid of about 11 million people. 8 to 11 million people. We don't have to get rid of every immigrant, but like all the like we got like 4 million or 5 million expired visas. They need to go. All the illegals that came in, that's probably about 4 or 5 million people. They need to go. And then all these temporary foreign workers and foreign students, we need to phase them out, right? And one of the ways to do it is cut the welfare. So refugees are not going to get as many. Again, like of course, like listening to Rachel Gilmore, she was like, "Oh my God, no, like cutting services for these poor people." It's like, okay, so these people can get free dental care, they can get free freaking eyeglasses and stuff like that, but regular Canadians can't. You know what I mean? Like it's sickening. It's sickening. No, these people, they should be paying out of pocket for health care and stuff like that, getting like medical coverage. Now, to a degree, they have to do this, but like this idea that we're going to treat people at the hospital for free, no. There should be a rule that you can't come into the country unless you have medical insurance. Period. Full stop. Then that would cut down a lot of the medical fraud. It just make it a thing. If you're in the country and you're not a citizen, you have to get medical insurance, which would get rid of a lot of illegals and welfare recipients. Like like again, and the other thing too is no immigrant should get welfare at all. Like just showing up and getting welfare. No, if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't get welfare. That will get rid of a lot of the dead weight, so to speak. And then the immigrants that do work, the immigrants that I'm not talking about the foreign workers that are undercutting all our labor, but like the people that come here, they did it the right way. They followed the rules. They got citizenship, and they opened businesses, or at least working. Happy to have you. You know what I mean? And that's all people have been saying. But it's like, oh, no, you're just a racist, bigot, xenophobe. No, we can't afford that kind of like we can't afford that political correctness anymore. We just can't. And when the food starts running low, like look, the food banks in Canada are overdrawn. Okay, why? The homeless problem in Canada is, the only place that might be worse is in the States, just because per capita, like the United States, like they don't take care of their people pretty much at all. You'll hear Americans dogging on Canadians all day about our taxation and stuff like that. Again, you could find any government program and critique it. There's no doubt about that. But we have the government program. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we have single payer health care and people die waiting for treatment. There's no doubt about that. But everybody can get health care to the point where we're giving it away to the fucking third world, right? We're just inviting in the third world. But no, like when the food starts running out, right? And part like everybody like inflation is hitting pretty hard, especially food insecurity, even amongst the West. Like it's like how can anybody in the West be starving? You know what I mean? Like especially in a country like Canada, where it's like okay, sure we've got these big ass winters to deal with, but we're like a breadbasket of the world. Well, it's the same thing like Ukraine. Ukraine itself, if everybody, all the arable farmland didn't have tanks in it right now, the Ukraine is like a breadbasket of the world. Kazakhstan, breadbasket of the world. Russia, breadbasket of the world. United States, breadbasket of the world. You see where I'm going. Even New Zealand produces a shit ton of food, right? That's just getting it around the world, right? The thing is that there's no like, look, with modern technology, you can grow food in the Arctic, you can grow food in the Sahara Desert, for fuck's sakes. Like, I mean, like, there's no reason why anybody should be starving. But when the system is designed to do that, like you bring in all these immigrants, okay, that come in, and especially these Indians, they're the worst, it seems. They go to the food banks and they just freaking empty the food banks. The whole family goes, right? And they don't even need the food. They just, some of them, they take it and they turn around and they sell it. like, it's, but, like that's their culture. That's how they function. But the people that desperately need the food, they can't. There's no food for them. The food. And And again, it's overrun by these really greedy immigrants. That's how they function in their old countries, and they brought it here. They don't have Western sensibilities, right? I know it's not all of them, but the problem exists. The same reason why the trucker accidents are so high. It's because of these people, particularly from India, and not just India, but like yeah, they got these fake licenses because the trucking companies, once they get their guy in management, they scam the system, right? And we got to crack down on all that, because if we don't, the end result, like especially when the food runs out, is we have to deal with these fucking greedy bastards, right? What are they going to do then, So yeah, so we had, like even here in Canada, like yeah, food banks are pretty much across Canada, and people are less people are donating, and the reason why and it's not because the people that would donate can't afford to donate anymore. I don't think it's that. I think it's they see it being taken advantage of, and it's like, well, I'm not going to help these fucking idiots, just go and whatever, just steal all this food when they don't really need it. But the downside is the people that really need it now have nothing. You know what I mean? Because of these, and if you say something about, well, you're racist, bigot, blah, 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 right? So that's the thing that you're seeing. You're seeing the tribalism. You're seeing all that. Like I said, you would see. And we're about to see the largest wave of, well, it's hard to say what will happen in North America because with the fuel prices, like the world leaders that, flood all these immigrants all over the place, right? Like the thing is that they might come here, but we might see like we saw in 2008 in Ireland, where once the welfare started getting cut off because the economy was so bad, the immigrants go where they're going to get a better deal for free, right? So again, not all the immigrants, but the majority of immigrants coming in just go on welfare. Like 85% of immigrants in Canada, when they come in, they don't work for the first 3 years, and maybe 45% do after that. And that means there's 55% that are, either on welfare or be taken, taken care of. Like you got to factor in women and children and stuff like that don't work, or seniors or whatever. But why are we bringing in the seniors? You know what I mean? There should be no, like anybody over the age of 55 shouldn't be coming into this country, really. You know what I mean? We don't no use for them. You know what I mean? And if they wanted to retire here and they had their own money, okay, we can make an exception for foreigners like that. Sure, because they'd be low in number and it wouldn't be a problem, and they'd be paying their own way. You know what I mean? But to come here and live off the system, no. Or they come here and they get the citizenship and then they go abroad and then live over back home on the Canadian dollar. I don't think that's fair. So there's a lot of corruption that we gotta deal with on top of all this. But the big one is going to be with the food shortages that are coming from this war and from Trump's tariff war. Like you have to understand that was you guys heard me all fucking spring or all winter talking about, the food shortages that were because of the tariffs. Like I followed the farmers very, like right now it's planting season again for some places in the States. They got no fertilizer. They got no fertilizer. You know what I mean? And again, the world leaders wanted this. This is their net zero plan, right? Like this war might be just for that. Just okay, well, there's no real aim to the war, but we have to basically kill everybody to save the planet, right? Like there's that in there too. Like these people are nuts, right? So the only way around that is you got to start thinking more like a frontiersman, even if you live in the city. Like the city is your worst enemy. It is because the city, when it functions in the just-in-time economy, it's fine, but when it breaks, it's broken. And again, you get a limited amount of time, and even if you can stock food away, when people are like, like you got roving gangs going kicking in doors looking for food, you know what I mean? And the police are nowhere to be seen because, well, they're off taking care of their families because they're starving too, right? It's going to get really, really, really bad. Like I said, there's going to be death ditches all over the West. It's just who's going in them. Like the ethnic cleansing is about to start. We're in the 10th Crusade, the 110th expulsion of the Jews, which is being brought on heavily by this war, and we're about to see millions of people flood out of the Africa and the Middle East. Maybe 500 million people might go to Europe. right? But the second they do, like if you're gonna like, you have to understand like a million people a year going into like the UK, here in Canada, Australia, Europe in general, a million people a year. Okay, that is ridiculous. We've already done that. But to see a million people a month going into Europe, a million people a month going in, or hundreds of thousands a month going into Canada, Australia, United States, whatever, and that'll overwhelm the system so fast. Um, like they're like like you will have extreme rioting and everything like that. Like you're basically going to be importing your rioters, right? And yes, our globalists will be, like they're the ones that were providing the dinghies. They're the ones that were providing the cruise ships that were bringing these people. Like you're telling me not one single law enforcement guy could figure out how about we commandeer the fucking cruise ship, to send people back, right? Well, I'll tell you why, because they're all in on it. Okay, the police chief might not be in on it, but it's above my pay grade because the governor or the bureaucrat told me I'm not allowed to deal with the problem. Therefore, I got to keep a paycheck. You know what I mean? Well, it's your family that suffers too. It's like all these, like the gun grab up here in Canada. Like you do realize, like the RCMP people that will be doing the gun grab. Well, yeah, you're going to be taking those guns from, like your own vaults. Maybe you don't care about your family members or like that, and or your neighbors or whatever. But you won't be able to have them either. You know what I mean? That's the thing about authoritarianism. It's a hell of a boomerang. But yeah, well, we'll see what happens with what's coming next with the like what game they're going to play. Like, are they really going to do a ground invasion? Like everything's signaling that they're going to do a ground invasion. But if that's just all like, okay, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, like all this posturing, okay, of all these troops, it's either they're going to do the ground invasion. Just they're, like it's just that they're so. It's not even inept. It's there's so much hubris that they're just like, we're going to tell them like, look, there's nothing Iran can do. We're going to conquer them no matter what. And with Trump's ego and the insanity of like Hegseth, and again Mike Pompeo out there on Fox News the other day, like none of these people say, "Oh, this is a bad idea." It's like, well, it's going to be tough, but here's how we're going to have to do it. What? You know what I mean? Like they are true believers, right? Like, look, Trump has betrayed his people. Okay, he's betrayed his base the most, right? He's betrayed every ally that the United States has ever had. And then on top of that, he's betrayed the entire right wing movement. So every country now that's going to protest vote back to the radical left is just going to it's just going to be even worse the next time under the left. You think the censorship is bad now? You know what I mean? Like up here in Canada, we're under the left again, right? Now, we've got a very moderate left-wing guy, but who panders slightly to the radicals. Like Trudeau just was radical and that was it, right? Carney's somewhere in the middle because he wants to keep his investors happy, right? It's the best you could hope for. Not a reigning endorsement, just it is what it is, right? But that said, every right-wing movement now is considered a Nazi Trump supporter, right? And then on top of that, he's fucking killed Christianity. Why? Because of Zionist evangelicals who think they're Christians. They're not Christians, but they think they're Christians. He's taken those people and put them front and center of the lunacy that the fucking evangelicals are, right? They're completely insane people as a group. And because of that, you got these people that would be, like they're going to be doubling down as hardcore atheists, right? And what is atheism? Well, it's woke. Like atheism isn't about reasonability and enlightenment and finding proof to things. It's not. It's just woke. It's just another, everybody's a Nazi. And again, it doesn't matter which atheist, the amazing atheist. That guy was just a degenerate, right? Like a really disturbing, your Vouch types, the bread tube types, these people are like hyper radical communists, right? and the atheism is unstoppable. And, like, they sound logical to a degree, but when you really get into what they don't stand for, like, they don't stand for anything. They're hyper individualist, right? And that's not the way to go. Like, we do need basically the resurgence of community through family, nation, future, and we're not going to get that with, a million migrants coming in per month. You know what I mean? And nor could we, like, the system is just going to implode. Like, we take on another 4 million people in Canada. That's it for Canada. Like, everything, nothing will function. Like, we're slowly in a recovery here in Canada. Believe it or not, as bad as everything is, like again, Americans look at how bad Canada is, and it is bad. But we have the same problems. The everything crisis here, it's the everything crisis globally in the West. But the difference is Canada is economically recovering. We're slowly getting rid of people. You know what I mean? The government is slowly shrinking again because, like, Carney's doing the Stephen Harper approach under the radar. Like, you don't just cut and slash like Javier Milei and collapse your economy overnight. Like, yeah, sure, you balance your budget, but now you've got no economy. You know what I mean? And everybody's fucking broke. What you do is you incrementally get rid of a couple of people, and shrink your government slowly, very, very slowly. Way too slow for most people like myself. I get it, but I also understand the delicate balance of austerity, right? Like, if you cut you can always balance your budget overnight, but at the loss of tens of thousands of jobs in your economy, you got to phase it out, so that you could slow down the money printing, right? Which, everyone's, oh, well, Canada is $76 billion over budget. Yeah, that's horrible. It is. But the United States is $2 trillion over budget. So in comparison, I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be, even if you make up for the per capita, it's still, like, it's close, but it's still not as bad. You know what I mean? And we could still service our debt. It's about a third of our budget. To service the debt. And Carney is, and I couldn't believe conservatives were actually complaining about this. I'm like, no, this is a good thing, because it means that next year, like, if we're servicing the debt more than just paying the interest on the debt, like, you have to be able to do the entire payment. And if, like, okay, the new spending was $240 billion, but it's really only $45 billion because the rest is just servicing the debt. I'd rather them service the debt. Why? Because in a decade, we have a balanced budget and we restore purchasing power back to the Canadian dollar, which is slowly, slowly happening, but it's so fragile with the global economy. And again, like, we would be doing really good right now. You know how good we would be doing right now if it wasn't for the tariff war? It'd be unbelievable how well we'd be. The States would be doing better. You know what I mean? Like, again, like, all the things that Carney's done, okay, for the positive, is, you have to weigh wins versus losses. And again, I'm not giving Carney a reigning endorsement. I'm saying he's doing everything he can to keep the ship off the rocks for, his stakeholder capitalists, whatever. So where Carney, like, basically takes the route of cross the T's, dot the I's, to change policy to affect the, the investor class, his guys. Trump just tries to manipulate the market overnight by, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's not working anymore. Like, Trump, like, basically cried wolf like 5 times last week just to manipulate the oil prices, and now it's not working. People have caught on that he's just manipulating the markets, right? With all the signaling, right? So they're not reacting. Which the stock market, again, I'm not giving financial advice, but bullet spread and bandages, because you can't eat gold. Gold's good. If you have it, hold it. Don't get rid of it. If you got jewelry, don't get rid of it. And I've seen friends do this. And I've told them, I said, okay, yes, the gold price is up a bit now, but it's not now that you need it. Like, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. Don't get rid of gold or silver until after the collapse, because that's when it's going to be worth so fucking much. You might be able to feed yourself for 1 ounce of gold in Venezuela could feed you for almost 6 months, like a few years back, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, 1 ounce would feed you for 6 months. It was like $1,700-$1,800 an ounce down there at that time. Don't quote me on the exact, but it was ridiculous anyway. Well, that'll never happen. It's happening here. Like, what do you mean that'll never happen? We're in the midst of it. But the fertilizer guys, I told you guys, of all the cost inputs, which are now more expensive than even in 2025, you have to understand the meal you had this morning or that you're going to have tonight was made in 2025. Right? We're eating like look. Obama and Harper did one massive stupid thing. I normally give Harper a lot of credit for a lot of things because he was, again, whether you like the guy or don't like the guy, he's been the best prime minister Canada's ever had over across quality of life. Like, we've never lived better, even during the recession in the 90s. We've never lived better than under Stephen Harper. The Americans have never even lived as well as we lived under Stephen Harper. You know what I mean? Like, we had the dollar half the time was stronger than the American dollar. Harper did everything he could to keep it at parity. You know what I mean? It's just, because the Canadian economy was growing. It was just growing and growing and growing. It wasn't growing like China's economy. Because everybody's like, oh, you have to have like 3 or 4% GDP growth every quarter, or else you're not doing well. It doesn't work like that. GDP growth is good. We had like minute GDP growth, but we had a really stable, sound economy. And then Trudeau came on. And now Carney has to fix that damage, and he's trying to stabilize the system again, right? And you're going to try to stabilize the system during a food shortage, in a tariff war, while World War III is going on, during an economic collapse. That's a fucking job I don't want. you know what I mean? Like, you got to look at, I get it, hate the guy as much as you want, but I really want you to understand the perspective of where we're at. Okay, yeah, you look at the woke stuff, it's a disaster, it's a shit show. Fine. The gun grab, bad. The censorship, horrible. Right? I get that. But you have to look at the jumping of ships that Europeans are doing, that Canada's doing, and Canada's the lead ship. The Pinto, the Santiago, and the Santa Maria. Like that's what's going on right now. Like, the Inquisition is on. Let's go find new lands. That's what's happening. Problem is, there's nowhere to run. You still have all these pepper types. Oh, here are the safest countries to bug out to. There are no safe countries. Like all these people that are going to South America thinking that, okay, in an economic, when the United States goes, and it really goes, okay, there's no country in South America that's not going to be affected by that. And when that happens, you best believe you don't want to be the gringo who thinks he's in a safe place in his villa down there because, no, I'm just the same as you guys. No, you're not. You're not them. You're in their territory. You have stuff. They don't have stuff. You are the have. They are the have-nots. You're going to die. No, you got to stay where you are. Like, get out of a city, but stay in your own home country. You're safer there than anywhere, unless it's being bombed. You know what I mean? That's the whole perspective. Unless it's being bombed. You know what I mean? Like, if you're in Iran right now, it's not safe. Okay, I get that. Right? But if you're anywhere else that's not being bombed, okay, you're safe for now. When the hordes of immigrants start coming in, like 1 million a week, and we can't feed these people, the crime rates are like, it's not going to be crime rates, it's just going to be complete rioting. And you're going to be overrun with like Africans just running around with machetes killing everybody for food. Like, you're going to see cannibalism in Canada, the United States, New Zealand, Australia. You're about to see cannibalism probably by late 2027, early 2028. You're going to be seeing, there's going to be reports of people like in North Korea eating their children. If you ever, like, North Korean cannibalism, just research it. Don't do it before you go to bed because it's going to disturb you for days. But people are so desperate that they're like, okay, well, my child is starving to death. I can't, like, kill myself and feed them because they won't be able to take care of themselves. And I can't bear to watch them basically starving to death. So I got to pick a kid, kill them, we'll feed them to the rest of the family. And yeah. Could you imagine having to make that decision? Could you imagine? I can't. Nobody can. You say that'll never happen here. You know how many times that's been quoted in history books? That'll never happen here. Like, do you really think the Iranians really truly thought that, that they were, going to be hit? You know what I mean? Like, under Trump, they probably, like, I don't think he's going to do it. We'll prepare anyway, and they were smart to prepare. Like the Iranians, the reason why there was such a excuse me, especially amongst the youth in Iran against the regime for like, like, okay, well, we got a water shortage going on because there's a heat wave. The government's spending all this money on the military instead of on us, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to go protest, right? And, of course, you got the agitators in there, the Mossad and whatever, the CIA, and then you know what happened, right? And then suddenly, bang, they are being invaded. And the only thing that's saving them is that our corrupt government, who wasn't really that corrupt when you think about it, that was planning on, hey, look, if we are ever invaded, this is the only way we're going to survive. And yes, the Iranians are going to endure this. It would take years, 15, 20 years to take out the Iranians the way they are right now. At the rate they're going, because in 2 months, there's no more missiles. You're going to be dropping like World War II 500 pounders. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be no AWACS by the end of the year. There's going to be no more tankers by probably in 2 months. You know what I mean? Like 3 months. There's going to be no more radar systems to see what's coming. Again, once you start to see the Iranians starting to use their Su-24s in bombing raids, they might lose a few of them in the bombing raids. I think what they did 2 weeks ago, they were just early on it. I think what happened was that they thought that, okay, well, we got the forward radars out. They won't see us coming. Well, they did see them coming, but they were 2 miles out, or 2 minutes out, at 700 miles an hour, 80 feet above the ground. Like, they were 2 miles out before the F-15 got them. That was close. Like, hey, you talk to any Western pilot, having two fighter bombers coming in 80 feet above the ground at 700 miles an hour, 2 minutes out. Like, it takes 3 to 5 minutes to get into the air and up to altitude, right? So I think the F-15 was probably already airborne by the time they were at that distance, but they probably only had maybe 5-6 minutes warning, and now it's even less because there's less radars, right? So at what point do you not get? By the time you detect them, you can't even get the pilots into the cockpit before the first strafing run happens. That's going to be one fuck of a humiliating day for the American Air Force when they have a row of F-15s taken out by some 1960s, 1970s Su-24s with just conventional carpet bombing and cluster bombs, right, over a runway. Even if they lose the Su-24s in the raid, like losing the AWAC, you know what I mean, like that E3 that's now irrefutable. That okay, and they lost a shit ton of other aircraft alongside that, including heavy transport aircraft, you name it, drones. God knows how many drones the Iranians have knocked down, and those drones, okay, with the F-35, with the drones, with the AWACS, with the satellites, and probably liaison teams on the ground. Yes, you can, get a real time kill chain. Oh, there's a target, hit it. But every time you break one of those chains, it takes that much more time to respond. It takes that much more time to identify your target. It takes that much, you know what I mean? Once they start to, hone in on the signals of these, if there is like these recon teams there, like those guys, like it doesn't matter if they have an encrypted code. That's not what the Iranians are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for just signals. Oh, there's a signal up in a hilltop somewhere. Oh, it's been there for 3 days. Get our guys on it. 3 days later, it's like, okay, yeah, you come in behind them, you smoke them with your AKs, right? I can imagine they're probably losing all kinds of SEAL teams and HIT teams and Rangers and stuff like that, Green Berets, whatever you name it. My grandfather used to do that in World War II. Basically, they called them commandos at the time. But basically, he was with the Cameron Highlanders, and what they did is they'd take a knife and a pistol, and they would sneak in into enemy camps, steal like documents and whatever. My grandfather would have to kill most people with a knife. So yeah, my poor grandfather. I'm sure that like that's why he didn't talk about the war too much. So the very little that he did talk about the war was pretty gruesome. He was also a Bren gun operator, so you imagine like putting 100 rounds of 303 British, with 190 grain, soft points through somebody. Fuck. Yeah, brutal. And then the dreaded spiraling 174 grainer. Yeah, Yeah, I've got those at home. Those things, they tumbled when they hit. So like it was like nasty wounds from that from the 303 British for sure. You know, I only ever seen one deer shot with a 303 British with a 190 grain, 190 or 195 grain soft point, and we almost wrecked the entire deer. Those were like one hit kills. Those were one hit kills. Um, Brutal. The only thing I think that did worse damage was a musket ball. You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. So like these teams that are behind enemy lines, they're going to get discovered. And when you get the drones out, the AWACS out, and the liaison teams out, which there could be like thousands of guys in there. But again, like they're going to spot the movement and eventually find these teams, right? And even if they have villagers and shit helping them, I mean, yeah, like the Iranians are going to find you. Like you might get a couple of weeks, get a couple of good hits in. But look, we're already seeing like the Iranians, their rocket, they're firing an average of like say 30 drones and 40 rockets a night, right? And they can replenish that. They can replenish that. Oh, they're running out of weapons. They're not running out of weapons. They probably just found the their circadian rhythm with it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, everybody gets a good night sleep, and they can put out this many rockets per day. They can build this many rockets. So they're going to replenish 100 heavy rockets a month. Okay. But we could be years away before they get down to where that's all they have is what they're producing. And we could be decades away from how much materials they have stored up to build this stuff. You know what I mean? And, like the idea of taking out all the tunnels and stuff like that with the security they have, it's possible to get a few hits in there, but like the Iranians, their critical, how do you put this? Like their critical stuff for war making has not really been hit at all. Okay, a couple of tunnel entrances that bulldozers can clear in about 3 or 4 hours. You know what I mean? Hitting all these buildings. Yeah, there is assets they lost. And yes, they lost probably, they're saying up to 1,300 people, but I've heard like 13,000 people. Who knows how many Iranians are actually been killed in these, pretty much indiscriminate airstrikes. And the fact that, they're hitting targets, like the Navy targets. Okay. Oh, yeah, we wiped out, like this is the third or fourth time Trump has come out and said, yeah, we've completely wiped out the Navy. And then you hit more boats. We destroyed 120 vessels. But just in speedboats, they probably have 500 to 1,000. You know what I mean? The Soviet Union had that same speedboat coastal defense thing as well, where they had something like 3,000 speedboats all around Russia, just ready to like fucking barrage, right? Any sort of, and then they got the drone boats coming out of the caves. That these drone boats, like okay, you can blow up as many drone boats as you want because it's the sailor that you got to kill. So the Navy, the Iranian Navy wasn't their, like they weren't going to fight, peer to peer. They weren't going to fight warship to warship the way the U.S. anticipated. They weren't going to send up their Air Force to Air Force peer to peer. They weren't going to do that kind of fighting, right? So it doesn't really matter if you wipe out the Iranian Navy per se, because they're still controlling the Strait of Hormuz, and they're doing it with drone boats that come out of caves that you just can't get. You know what I mean? Like you might get them out in the open once in a while, but you also got to be careful that you're not blowing up civilian fishing trawlers and shit. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz, even though it's under control by the under control of the Iranians, there's still a lot of traffic there. There's a lot of tankers just sitting there at anchor. You know what I mean? There's cruise ships. There's there's everything in there. There's just other merchant vessels. There's fishing vessels. There's recreational vessels. So even if you fly your Apache gunship helicopters flying them around, searching for Iranian Navy, you got to also watch you don't like kill people from Oman and all these all these other Gulf states, because their guys are out there too. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, so it's yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so the whole posturing of all these troops, are they going to land them on Karg Island? I really like that. That's a suicide mission. Would they do it? Yes, they would do it. Why? Because they're psychopaths, right? This could be just, okay, well, the Jews need a major bloodletting for this ritual, get all these guys killed. It could be as simple as that. You know what I mean? And you say, oh, that's just demonizing the Israelis for, but they've been known to do that. Like, again, they're religious fanatics, right? Not all of them, but a lot of them. Again, Hegseth, everybody's going to say Hegseth is a religious fanatic, but what, the Zionists aren't? Of course they are. You know, like it's based on religion. You know, like it's a supremacy movement, sure, but it's based on the chosen people thing, right? So yeah, they're going to do that. You know, they're going to do that. I'm just sort of, you know, like they're going to sacrifice Iranians as a bloodletting. You know, it's you know, and the rest of the world, and again, for the poor Americans that are like that, you know, like 80% of Americans are against this. You know, like when you hear the rest of the world refer to the Americans as the Epstein class, you know, it's one of those things that, and somebody made a good analogy because, like, you know, like this whole cutthroat hyper individualism thing and capitalist mentality is, you know, me first and whatever, right? And a lot of people have that, right? This main character syndrome and all that stuff. And they got that, and they just don't have the empathy, right? So, like, if it doesn't affect me, I don't care, right? Libertarians, right? Um, but yet, everybody on the right has been screaming about, you know, the Podesta files, Planet Ping Pong, or Comet Ping Pong, whatever you call it. You know, the Pizzagate stuff. The left dismissed it, just called us conspiracy theorists. But now that, you know, and they overlooked it because they just hate Trump so much that we can't criticize Obama or his administration or whatever, or Biden. Like Hunter Biden's laptop, okay? The left should be just as infurious about that. But no, they defend the guy because he's against Trump. You know what I mean? Like Hillary Clinton, we're going to defend her because she's against Trump. Like, and that's what we hate about the left so much, is their hypocrisy. Where the right was against, you know, they were begging for, you know, Obama's head for the, you know, the Podesta files and stuff like that. They were begging for Hillary Clinton's head, you know, because, you know, the corruption that, you know, all that corruption. Like, and the Epstein files as well, right? And we've known about the Epstein files since Obama, right? Trump was supposed to go after it, right? And he put on a show, made it look like he signaled he was going to do this and he was going to do that, and nothing ever happened. Now we know that he's in on it, right? And okay, fine, I can call out that Trump is in on it. I don't think he diddled kids, but he probably diddled teenage girls, like the what you call it, Prince Andrew kind of thing. That's probably what they got on him, right? Where, you know, like when you look at it for like, you know, the right wing has been calling out Epstein files and Pizzagate and all that right from day one, and they stay consistent on it. The left, when Trump gets in, now they care about it. You know what I mean? I'm glad you care about it, but you should have cared about it right from day one. Because if we live in a society that, you know, has the same people who told us the vaccines were safe and effective, are the same people that are on the Epstein lists, that are the same people that got us into World War III, and have us in a global fertilizer shortage and fuel shortage and an economic collapse. Like, at what point do we uphold rule of law? Where are the brave law enforcement military? I've been begging for them. I've been criticizing them and calling them names, you know, trying to shame them, right? And in order to be seen. And the rest of the world notices this. So they really truly see us as a fallen society. They really do. Like, they really truly believe that, you know, like, we're protecting pedophiles. And we are. That's what we're doing. It's disgusting, but that's what our legal system is doing. They're protecting pedophiles. While the bankers are making money off the war machine. And yes, this is a war machine. Look, the United States, Max Kaiser, I'll quote this a million times because he was so right on this. I haven't listened to the guy in years, but he was 100% right when he said the United States has a death and debt-based economy, meaning you take our democracy, you take our petrodollar, or we drop democracy JDAMs on you. Now, one way when you're printing money to keep inflation at bay is to blow it up. Best way to blow it up is start a war. When all else fails, they take you to war, like Gerald Celente says. And with that going on, A lot of this war could be just burning up money, but it doesn't matter because the United States is pretty much insolvent. It cannot pay its debts. It's in the collapse mode as we speak. It's just it has the longest way to fall because it's the number one economy in the world. But other economies are trying to harden outside the United States, like the Nordic Seven, which includes us, and again all these other trade deals. Like everybody's jumping ship from the American ship. Like nobody's doing trade deals with the United States. I don't think there's been a trade deal signed in probably about 6-8 months with the United States. Don't quote me on that, but I don't recall anything. Just more tariffs. These aren't trade deals; they're just tariffs. The tariffs. There's still the people that we're making billions of dollars on it. Yeah, but you're not going to be able to buy fertilizer. You're going to die. Like I said, you're about to starve to death in the West. Like people don't get it. Like about half of Africa is about to starve to death because we feed them. We shouldn't have to. Africa, like that continent should be able to feed the 10 planets, let alone one. You know what I mean? But you got people that just rely with their hands out. And those people, when they start starving, guess what? They're not gonna start, I better start, I got 16 weeks to put in a crop or my family's gonna die. They're gonna, no, I'm gonna jump on an NGO boat to the West and they'll just give me free stuff, right? But when they get there, they got to stand in line behind the next, 3 million people that just arrived there over the past 3 months. There's not enough food banks. There's not enough food banks now. Again, the immigrants that have come into our country here in Canada have pretty much raped all the food banks because they can. Why go buy groceries when you can just send your 6 siblings out there to bring, with fake addresses and just, again, that's what's going on. And again, you got these people on YouTube, like these Indian guys on YouTube, saying this is how you get free stuff. Where the Western mindset is, oh, this is for homeless people. This is for people really struggling. These people, oh no, you can save on your groceries. Look, if you need help, I don't mind people needing help. But when you see that kind of greed, it's infuriating. And you can call me racist, bigot, or whatever, but get the fuck out of my country. You know what I mean? You piece of shit human being. It's bad enough that you're fucking us over, but you fuck your own over. I guess that's it. I guess everybody's guilty of that, including us. Again, like I say, like the pedophile rings. But at least we're calling it out. At least we're calling it out. So it's only a matter of time before, we're circling the wagons, and it's like, okay, well, like the judges and lawyers, they're getting named. The people that are, okay, this judge just let this refugee go that just raped this 9-year-old girl and basically killed her or did whatever. Again, story after story. And it's like, okay, well, you can't say that or you're going to be subjected to a hate speech law. Which judge and lawyer is doing this? And people are starting to call it out. Okay, here's a judge that let this lady go this guy go because it would affect, gave him a lesser sentence so it wouldn't affect his refugee status. We need to keep calling those people out, those judges and lawyers. Look, if they're not going to uphold rule of law, they shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? If they're politically correct, they shouldn't be there. If they're anti-whites, they shouldn't be there. If they're anti-European, they shouldn't be in Europe. If they shouldn't be in charge. And we got to hold these people to account. And it's getting harder because of the authoritarianism. But it's that or we die in a civil war or starve to death or whatever. This can't go on forever. It's going to, this storm is going to break and it's going to be disastrous for anybody that's involved with it. Again, this is why, yes, it does sound like Donald Trump is getting ready and Israel's getting ready to find a way to justify dropping B-61 nukes on Iran. They're going to do it. And why? Because the goal isn't for regime change in Iran. The goal is to kill all the Iranians for the Greater Israel Project so they can steal the land. It's pretty much what the Greater Israel Project is all about, to the point that people that are helping them in the Gulf states are also on that list of, okay, well, at first it was just 7 countries in 5 years, like General Wesley Clark said back in 2009, and the last country on the list was Iran. Okay, fine, but now, if Iran does fall, well, then they got to take out Turkey next. This is what the Israelis, we got to take out Turkey after. They're a problem now. It's like the Turkey has done fuck all to you. Well, okay, they stick their thumb in your eye once in a while, but like the Israelis, if the Israelis can keep killing all the people they want, they'd kill everybody on the planet. They're fucking insane. And don't take my word for it. Just go listen to them. They'll gaslight you in that loud, but then they'll say it out loud. And it's not one person saying it. It's not one rabbi telling you how he has to destroy all the white people in Europe because he hates, Amalek and Edom and all that, and Esau or whatever. All that biblical stuff. It's not just one guy. It's like rabbi after rabbi after rabbi. The same way we called out all these imams over the years of being, promoting terrorism. Imam after imam after. So Islam is not compatible with the West, but neither is Judaism. But the chosen, they're not the chosen people, guys. They made it up. That's what the whole Scofield Bible was a revision so that they could brainwash evangelicals. You know what I mean? Tell me I'm wrong. Just pick up a history book. Just read who revised the freaking Scofield Bible. It was revised by the Jewish Zionists. Like that. It's openly admitted stuff, right? So, yeah. But anyway, there's really bad times coming in the next couple of weeks. It's already here. The fuel shortages are going to be a very sobering moment for people because it's like, okay, I got to go get groceries and stuff like we saw what people did with toilet paper in 2020. Just wait till the food runs out. Like people can't get ammo right now because it's either too expensive. Like a box of 30-06 shells. Who was I talking to about a week ago? It was like $75, $80 for 6.5 Creedmoor, like $90, $100. 308 was like $50. 30-30 was like $45. 30-30. You used to get that like for so cheap, like $20 max, and I thought it was ridiculous then. 357 Magnum, I think it was over $80 for 50 shots now. It used to be like 30, which that was ridiculous. I got lots of it, but 38 Special, 357 Magnum. I got lots of reloading stuff, but like gunpowder, I think is like if you could get it, is probably like $100 a jar. Black powder is like 60 when it used to be like $15. I was complaining when it was $15, right? And the problem with the Pyrodex is all my Pyrodex is no more good, right? Like it doesn't last long. But yeah, maybe you want to get yourself a flintlock, guys, because it's 3 ingredients for black powder, and again, lead musket balls. If you can't get a hold of lead, use wax. I do plan on getting myself. I've always wanted like either a dog lock musket or the infamous Brown Bess, right? I've been meaning to get one for years, right? And the reason why that is that if you get one of those, like again, if you could keep it operating in the 1700s, then that should be the stuff that you should be looking at. You know what I mean? Stuff like a better mousetrap. What kind of equivalent of survival gear would be found in the 1700s, right? Your possible bag, right? And again, people back then traveled very, very minimalistically. Again, jump in on this book again. Like the wagons, like the settler wagons. Like that was a whole lifestyle for people. In hostile territories, right? But nowadays we got modern houses. But the problem with modern houses is that they don't last long. Like the old house, like there's a reason why you still see houses standing from the 1600s around here. Definitely anything from the 1800s, because the tin roofs were like this. Nothing stayed on them. The walls had little cracks in it. So the house never molded because there was always air coming through. You had the stuff like basically sheep's wool or whatever, or newspaper in the walls, cracks just to keep the heat in. People slept with basically with awnings around the bed, because the firewood wasn't enough to heat pretty much a piss poorly uninsulated house. Right, so you got to kind of start thinking in that kind of survival term now. The food and the fuel are going to start to run out. It's going to be a very late. You're not going to see the food shortages. You're going to see you're already seeing the inflation. Like I said, I said that you'd start to see food shortages around late February, which there is some shortages. But I said at best you would see food inflation. Wow, the food inflation just hasn't stopped, right? So that part was correct. I just don't know the timeline, right? But this time I can tell you all the warnings I've been giving you last year about the food crisis, which was a thing. It just it didn't hit here as hard as I thought it was going to, but it hit here. Food banks are empty, right? That's your canary in the coal mine. Food banks are, even if it's because of greed. But you have to understand these people, okay, that are taking from the food banks, okay, these greedy people, okay, they've already bumped the people that can't feed themselves out of food, right? So now you've got those people starving to death on the streets. It's not covered yet by the mainstream media, but we're going to find basically, no, the guy didn't die of drinking himself to death like normal on the street. Not mocking it, but like, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, he starved to death. He didn't drink a drop of alcohol. He was just homeless and he starved to death. But why is he? Why was he homeless? Well, he was living in his tent after he lost his job in 2020, and then where he was working, they replaced they fired all the white guys, and basically, and this is what's statistically going on. They're firing all the white guys, laying them off, saying, "Oh well, we got to make all these cuts," and then when they hire everybody back, they hire back the temporary foreign workers, right? Why? Because they could hire them at half the wages, and the government covers the other half the wages, or something like that. It's a complete utter scam. The temporary foreign worker program is a total scam. Oh well, the white people won't do these jobs. That's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. And not only that, this idea that we cannot find any skilled labor whatsoever. Look, if we got welfare recipients, okay, first you phase out the temporary foreign workers. You don't just cut them off overnight like Trump did with the farmers. Like, because now you got all these farmers. Like these carrot farmers, like, I can't pick all these carrots myself. I lost my entire staff because of Trump. What am I going to do? The guy's bawling while he's trying to pull carrots out of the ground so he doesn't lose all his crop. Like I got 3 weeks, so the carrots are going to start going back. Like like the rice farmers and the carrot farmers in Texas got fucking hammered this last season. You know what I mean? So Victory Gardens is the way to survival. Like, you have to understand. Okay, the thing is that here in Canada, it's less than 3% of the population is farmers, feeding 40 some odd million people, 41 million people, something like that. When we hit 44 million people, we can't feed ourselves anymore. Especially as generational farming is kind of, going the way of the dodo, right? Why? Because like China and Bill Gates have to buy up all the farmland, right? Because the system has been set up for us to fail, for globalism, right? And the same globalists, they're in power. Carney's a globalist, right? Trump is a globalist. He's the other mob boss fighting, so he's the Israeli level globalist instead of the Chinese level globalist, you know what I mean? Yeah. But what I'm telling you is that go out, buy your seeds, buy everything you need, learn how to garden if you can. If you put in whatever Victory Garden, every little bit helps. It takes a lot. Like the average person has to eat, in North America, eats about 2,000 pounds of food. Now, this is Americans. And again, obesity in America is a big thing. But you could probably survive on 500 pounds of food per person. Like, if you're eating more than a pound a day, like 2,000 pounds of food is a lot. But that's like, you eat like 5 Big Macs, that kind of like really shitty stuff, and just nibbling all day, right? You don't want to be that. So 500, we'll say 552 weeks. Like a pound and a half a day of food. Pound to a pound and a half a day of food. We keep the average person, fit and whatever. The average person, it'd probably be more. It's all about calories. I get that, but if you want to work it out in pounds. So you got to think about how much vegetables. For example, one year I had 140 some odd pounds of vegetables. Now that wasn't going to last me very long because like you take a 5 pound zucchini after you've cooked it, it's like a quarter of a pound or something. Yeah, you know, like an eighth of a pound. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So you know, like in raw vegetables, it you know it's. But I had like without even really trying, I had about 140 pounds. So this year, I like the next 2 3 weeks, I'm going to start to. I mean, I'd have it now, but like I want money to come in before I start to run up the credit card. You know what I mean? But one of the things I'm getting is all my like topsoils, everything like that. I'm going to get a load of manure, load of topsoil, and then buy the specialty bags, maybe a couple, 2 dozen shrimp compost, big couple of cans of bone meal, um, a couple of big bags. Like I'm looking at about $500-600 worth of that stuff alone, right? For growing crops, and then maybe about $100 worth of seeds. Seed vaults. The thing about seeds is seeds do go bad, right? So the idea is to learn how to do generational seeds, right? Where you like for example, and I've done this a few times and it does work. Problem is you have to get heirloom seeds, right? Because most of the stuff is GMO, where all the seeds, not all the seeds, but most of the seeds will be dead. Like you get your green pepper, you cut it open, you got 500 seeds there. You're saying 2 of them grow. Most of them will grow the plant, but they won't fruit, right? That's the problem with GMO seeds. They're a dead end, so that you can't just keep your seeds. So getting heirloom seeds is very, very, very hard. I think in Canada, Vessi seeds is the best. But like, if you haven't ordered already, if you order today, you'll get stuff in August. That's what I'm saying. Everybody I know that uses Vessi seeds. That's the biggest problem. I've ordered from them before. They're as good as they can be, but they usually let you know that there's going to be a delay. They're right on their website. They're like, yeah, get your seeds early because delays, right? So get whatever you can get for now, and and try to get stuff. If you do have places to grow stuff, try to get stuff that's basically perennial. Like grapevines and stuff like that. I plan on putting a bunch of grapevines in and stuff like that this year. Yeah, I guess that's about all I'm going to talk about today. But yeah, look, I know this is a little bit of a divergent from the regular World War III stuff, but you have to understand, like, Trump has fucked up the world's food supply on behalf of Israel. It's going to take a few weeks to notice it. Look, nobody thought the fuel crisis would hit Southeast Asia that fast. Taiwan is hit. Philippines is hit. South Korea is hit. Yeah. Japan is, they kind of diverted, a bit of a saving grace, but even they're going to get hit. Even here in Canada, an oil-rich country, we're going to have, a supply shock too. Guys, it's about to get really, really bad. Like, who would think one little strait in the world, like, could the United States have planned the disruption? Like, there's no other place in the world that I know of that I could think of trade route that was more critical than this one, and they fucked it up. The United States is about to go to war with about 40 to 45 different countries. Like, Trump has basically declared war on every country, every ally with we're currency war, trade war, shooting war. He's in trade war with over 100 and some odd countries, right? And threatening to annex Greenland and go to war with us, not ruling out military. Again, we take it all seriously. And again, maybe the Middle East is just a complete haphazard, blunder that we're thinking that, like, Trump's like, I was successful with the Maduro raid, so yeah, I can fly guys into. There's not, we'll lose a couple of guys because people get killed, whatever. But we'll just overwhelm the Iranians with, like Apocalypse Now, like with choppers or whatever. It's not going to be like that, right? Like the Iranians, people like all they have to do is survive. Like, they're not just surviving right now. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in Iran. Same thing with Israel. There's a lot of stuff being destroyed, but there's still a lot of stuff just functioning. But that the stuff that is crucial, like the food, the fuel, that's the stuff that brings everything down, right? And it takes a while. But the difference is, you know, like like Israel is about to experience what it did to Lebanon by. Remember when the United States and Israel basically bombed the port in Lebanon there, blew up all the food granary silos and stuff like that, creating a massive famine because the inflation of the food went so high, people were starting to starve to death. Yeah, like this is the type of people we're dealing with, right? They don't care who they kill. They're insane. So the idea of sending, like I think what's happening is that the Iranians, every time they hit something, it delays the land, like this idea of announcing all these troops. Okay, well, if they were going to use these for an invasion, well, you've given the Iranians now 3 weeks to get ready for them. You know what I mean? So like you're like the hubris is, well, it doesn't matter if they know we're coming or not because we're going to kick down the door. We'll overrun them because our military, blah 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 blah. The U.S. military is not that good. It's good. It's one of the best militaries in the world, but that's not how it works. It's not about the size or the budget or how good your equipment is. It really comes down to the strategy and who, like, how you win a war is not by who wins, it's who can endure the most losses. And my hunch right now, like, look, the Iranians are not asking for a peace deal at all. They don't want it. They're not interested in it. They've come out like, our official stance is we are not talking to anybody in the Trump administration. So like Trump is like probably talking to some wannabe guy, and he's taking that as, oh, that's the new regime. It's like this guy's not elected, nothing like that. That's how regime change works, right? We just put in whoever we want, right? So they're probably talking to like some dual citizenship Israeli guy in Iran, saying, yeah, I'll run the country for you once you overthrow the government. Like the Iranian administration has no knowledge of this, right? And if they were lying, whatever, they're using it as a lie, as a bargaining chip. But when you listen to the Iranians, you can really clearly see from their propaganda and stuff like that, they have no intentions of ending this war soon because they want to get payback. They want to kill as many Americans as possible because you've killed their civilians. You've murdered their women and children. You're destroying their infrastructure. You've attacked their desalination plants, and they're retaliating in kind. But, again, they're going to bring the war to the United States at some point. And it will be a war that will not be countered by the U.S. military. You start knocking off stuff in the United States, like B-52s and stuff like that, suddenly now you lose your strategic bombers, right? Like right now, just with what the United States is lost, if it does go toe-to-toe with China, and maybe it's like Joe Scalzo said, that they were going to have World War III around 2024, 2025. Okay, it was a year later, but the United States is going to lose the war and China's going to win, right? So the best way to do that is just run everybody out of run the United States out of, the weapons that they need, like the air defense and stuff like that. And just, again, they'll sacrifice every American soldier. They don't care, right? It's for the globalists. They don't care who dies. Henry Kissinger said, like, we don't care about the soldiers. They're just, cannon fodder. You know what I mean? And, again, you got all these guys just following orders. So, like, like if they're dumb enough to land on the beaches of Iran, like on their shores, like you're going to die there. You know what I mean? Like that's just Iranian propaganda. No, it's just logic. It's just, you're going to die there. But I'm fighting for women and children. I'm fighting for the right for you to be able to say that. Yeah. No, you're just going to die there. You're not fighting for my democracy. Look, if you're fighting for my right to say stuff, then maybe you need to fight our own governments who bring in all these fucking censorship laws. you know what I'm saying? Like, no, you're not. You're not fighting for freedom and democracy and women and children. You're fighting for Israel, Zionism, globalist banking, Rothschild banking system, and BlackRock and Vanguard and all those evil fuckers. The Davos crowd, the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. That's what you're fighting for. You're mercenaries. Sorry to break it to you. It's not from the Constitution and all that bullshit. Constitution are not worth anything anyway because our governments don't pay attention to them. Right? You don't believe me? Speak out against the government. Find out what happens to you. It's like the people that will sit there. China's not a communist government anymore. That was they just put that up there for posturing. Yeah. Say something bad against the Chinese government. Look what's happening with Xi. Look at how all the fucking generals that he's disappeared under him in the past 6 months. Yeah. Tell me that China's not a fucking communist country. Yeah. Step out of line, you'll find out. Just because communists use capitalism to float the communism doesn't mean they're not communists. Right? Anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. We'll see what kind of chaos happens tomorrow. Crazy. But guys, put food away. I get it. Everybody's broke. Everybody's struggling. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a day where no matter how expensive the food is, it's still cheaper than unobtainium. If it's on the shelf, it's on sale. Sure, again, the prices aren't going up. The value of your currency is going down. And this is the way they want it. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself. Be true to others. Always do the right thing. Have yourselves a great day.